This is a test for the July council meeting of Blayney Shire Council. We will start the council meeting in approximately 1 minute's time. Welcome to the July 22nd Blayney Shire Council meeting, with the time being 6:01 p.m. This council meeting is being live streamed and recorded. By speaking at the council meeting, you agree to being live streamed and recorded. Please ensure that if and when you speak at this council meeting, that you ensure you are respectful to others and use appropriate language at all times. Blayney Shire Council accepts no liability for any defamatory or offensive remarks or gestures made during the course of the council meeting. A recording will also be made and published on the council YouTube channel. Given that all councillors are here tonight, there are no apologies or requirements for video attendance. To acknowledgement of country, and Blayney Shire Council acknowledges that this meeting is being held on the traditional lands of the Wiradjuri people and recognise the strength, resilience and capacity of Aboriginal people in this land. Council celebrates the diversity of Aboriginal people and their ongoing cultures and connections to the lands and waters of the Blayney Shire. To disclosures of interest, and councillors are reminded of their oath or affirmation of office made under section 233A of the Local Government Act and their obligations under the council's code of conduct to disclose and appropriately manage conflicts of interest. General Manager, are there any disclosures of interest by councillors or staff?
Through you, Mr Mayor, at this point in time I've received no declarations, but noting anyone can declare at any point in time as well.
Thank you, General Manager. To the business paper, and there are 3 mayoral minutes. I'll start with the late mayoral minute, which is item number 20. A recommendation there that a performance review panel consistent with the Office of Local Government guidelines under section 23A of the Local Government Act be established. The performance review panel include the Mayor, the Deputy Mayor and the 5 other councillors, subject to their availability. 3, Council engages the services of Sync Solutions to implement a training program for the Performance Review Committee members and facilitate the performance review process on Tuesday the 19th of August 2025. 4, Council delegate all tasks necessary for the completion of the performance review. And 5, the Mayor be delegated authority to finalise all arrangements for the performance review panel to convene on Tuesday the 19th of August 2025. As it's a mayoral minute, I'll move it from the chair, so there is no need for a seconder. Councillors, any discussion with regard to this mayoral minute? If there is no discussion, I'll just wait for a mover to be put into the computer system. All those in favour, please raise your hand. Aye. Against, carried unanimously. To the next mayoral minute. The mayoral minute report by Local Government New South Wales into government cost shifting onto ratepayers. A recommendation that Council note the mayoral minute on the impact of government cost shifting on each ratepayer within the Blayney Shire. Again, as it's a mayoral minute, I'll move it from the chair. And there is no need for a seconder. So, councillors, any discussion with regard to this report from Local Government New South Wales into cost shifting which is quite substantial, approximately $550 per ratepayer in Blayney Shire on average. Cost shifting and examples there with the Royal Fire Service, their cost of doing business over the last decade has increased their expenses by around about 270%. You've had inflation of about 30%. So while the 11.7%, for example, with the Royal Fire Service has stayed the same, the amount of expenses has just gone through the roof. And that's on annual reports, so I've taken that out of the Royal Fire Service annual report. But it goes across weeds is another example where the WAP funding, Weed Assistance Program, I think it's called, has stayed roughly the same, yet we've had inflation over the last decade of about 30%. So government support has actually diminished with regard to weed control with the county council, which this council also contributes funds for the operation and for roadside control. Heap of other areas across the board with regard to cost shifting, but it does average out at around about $550 per ratepayer. That's on an average. Blayney might be higher or slightly lower. We don't know. Councillors, any other comments or questions with regard to the report from Local Government New South Wales into cost shifting? If not, all in favour? Aye. Against? Carried unanimously. Mayoral Minute report on the National General Assembly of Local Government in Canberra. The recommendation that Council note the mayoral minute on the 2025 National General Assembly of Local Government. Move from the chair as it's a mayoral minute and no need for a seconder. Any discussion or comment with regard to this mayoral minute? If not, I will just make a couple of quick comments. It was very interesting, and I attended the 4 days of the summit, so it was from the Tuesday to the Friday of the week of the last council meeting. But on roads, there's a big push nationally to try and reduce the speed limit because of the condition of our roads, as in not just Blayney Shire, but across the whole of the country. So it's not just a Blayney or New South Wales, but an Australia-wide problem. And a lot of the roads speed limits are just set at 100. And so there's a real push to try and get towards this zero loss of life by I think it's 2050. So a lot of discussion, particularly on the roadside, of how to do that. And it's interesting, the perception of zero road fatalities. That's preventable road fatalities. There seems to have been a change in the wording. Originally it was just zero by 2050. Now it's preventable. So with regard to motor vehicles and road conditions, etc. So nothing's come out of it to force councils to reduce the speed limits, but there seems to be a national push by a lot of people. And when I attended with the director and another staff member the road congress, again there was a strong debate about whether the 100 k's was too much, too high. But then there was also a lot of discussion, particularly during the National Assembly, with regard to country people have long distances, and if you lowered the speed limit by say 20 kilometres an hour, it can add an hour or two extra to journeys that are 500 or 600 kilometres if you look at Western Queensland or other places. So, but it's just something to put on the radar. It was a well worthwhile exercise. I have made available to councillors the presentations. I think 6 of the 7 major presentations that were provided six of the presentations were provided out of the 7 to the councillors to have a look at those presentations, particularly on demographics too. One positive, Blayney Shire is projected to continue to grow. Some of the shires in the joint organisation area are actually projected to shrink over the next decade, but Blayney Shire is, don't know by how much because it was an Australia-wide map, but you could actually see Blayney on the map and see the rest of the shires, of course, on the map across Australia. Another important point to note, we did send up 2 motions to this Congress. The first motion was incorporated in others about mining royalties and also renewable energy royalties. lost some of its impetus in the way that it was tagged onto another motion. And unlike LG New South Wales, where all sub-motions are also taken into consideration, at the National Congress it's only the top motion that is actually enacted upon. So our motion wasn't, and I didn't know about this until these were in an omnibus motion at the front to say already existing policy, just reiterating existing policy. And so I didn't know that I could have actually moved it out of there and actually had it debated. I discovered just after, because that was the first motion that went up to Congress, and then they were sort of going with some of the other sub-motions that you could bring them out. So with that one, it didn't. With the one with regard to the Section 10 declaration with regard to Dungeon Road, that did get debated, about 20 minutes of debate. I had the right of reply, and the recommendation by the council did get up as a motion. So Congress has enacted that, which is a review pretty well of the Section 10 rules, which are 40 years old. I was strongly supported by Bathurst Regional Council and the Deputy Mayor who was there, who seconded it and participated heavily in the debate. They've also had a Section 10 with regard to Mount Panorama. So it was a very good debate, and it was a positive outcome for our second motion that we did put to the National Congress. So well worthwhile going along, well worthwhile debating. Whether anything comes out of that motion is unknown. Councillors, any other questions or comments about the National Congress or National Assembly? If not, all in favour? Aye. Against? Carried unanimously. To minutes of the previous council meeting held on the 23rd of June 2025. A recommendation there that the minutes of the ordinary council meeting held on the 23rd of June 2025, being minutes numbers 2506-001 to 2506-028 be confirmed. Do I have a mover? Councillor Scott moved that way and Councillor Hutchings seconded that. Any discussion or questions about the minutes? If not, all in favour? Aye. Against? Carried. Any comments or actions to come out of the minutes? Questions, etc. on the minutes? Or everyone happy with matters arising from the minutes? If there is none, we will move on. Doesn't appear to be any. To item number 4. Questions taken on notice at the previous council meeting held on the 23rd of June 2025. Recommendation that the questions taken on notice at the ordinary council meeting held on the 23rd of June 2025 and the subsequent response be received and noted. Do I have a mover? Councillor Newstead and Councillor Goswich. Discussion or questions? There was only one question that was taken on notice for Councillor Newstead. Any discussion or questions on that? If not, all in favour? Aye. Against? Carried. To item number 5, Quarterly Outstanding Resolution Report. There's a recommendation that Council note the Outstanding Resolution Report to Council. Do I have a mover? Councillor Goswich moved that way. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Newstead. Now, questions on the Quarterly Outstanding Resolution Report? Councillors, do you have any questions on outstanding resolutions? I do have.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, that application under the Community Energy Upgrade Fund has been submitted, and I've got confirmation of that. There's been no further feedback. I think the timeline for that was about October, off memory, for that to be determined. In the meantime, this other Australian government grant, they're both Australian government grants, but this other one for grid enhancing technology has been presented, which we indicated to the joint organisation we would look to apply under that fund as well for that 493,000 is needed from wherever it comes from to match the 500,000 already committed from Newmont.
Thank you, General Manager. Any other questions? If not, all in favour? Aye. Against? Carried. And I'm not quite sure if that phone call was actually alerting me that my microphone wasn't on. So there may be some silence in the first few resolutions. Apologies if that was the case. Moving on to number 6, Australia Day Committee Review. A recommendation that Council appoint the following to the committee to undertake a review of Blayney Shire Australia Day Committee structure. And then there's Councillor X, A, Councillor B, Councillor X, Councillor XC, C, Councillor X, and D, the General Manager or Delegate. Now, we can have more councillors if there is an interest in more councillors appointing. So do I have a mover for a start before we look at councillors? So Councillor Scott and Councillor Goswich have moved and seconded that. So councillors, do I have interest in councillors participating? Could you just raise your hand? So Councillor Newstead, Councillor Scott, Councillor Goswich, and Councillor Dorset. I think they're the councillors that are, so we've got those 4 councillors. So Councillor Scott, Newstead, Goswich, and a 4th, Councillor Dorset. The other 2 councillors, you're happy not to participate? Nods. And I won't, as the Mayor, participate. So I would ask if this resolution is gets up that Councillor Scott chair this subcommittee. So you just might want to note that too in A, Councillor Scott and brackets chair. Thank you. Okay, any debate or discussion with regard to this resolution or what you may like to see with regard to the resolution? Councillor Scott.
Third time's a charm. In relation to that committee going forward, I think it's important we look at trying to make sure we have a diverse range of the community involved in that committee so that we can really highlight the good works of many in our community.
Thank you. We look forward to the report that comes back from the committee. Councillors, any other discussion with regard to item number 6 or 7, as in depends because we've put that extra mayoral minute at the front. If not, all in favour? Carried unanimously. To item number 7 in the business paper, LG New South Wales Annual Conference 2025. Now, there's a recommendation there that Council nominate the Mayor as the voting delegate to the 2025 LG New South Wales Annual Conference, and number 2, approve the registration and attendance of the following persons as Blayney Shire Council delegates to the 2025 LG New South Wales Conference. The Mayor, B, Deputy Mayor, C, General Manager, and D, Councillor X. We could take more than one councillor, but firstly, I want to check with the Deputy Mayor about her availability in November because it's 2 working days that are in November. The dates are in the report, I think. 23rd to the 25th, Sunday being the 23rd, so Monday the 24th and Tuesday the 25th. So your availability for a start, Deputy Mayor?
I'm available at that time this year.
Okay, thank you. So no, do any other councillors wish to attend So this will be in Penrith, in Western Sydney, the conference this year. Happy to take nominations if other councillors do want to attend. There is a suggestion as well with regard to the National Congress next year. So have I moved or seconded? No, I haven't. Okay, so sorry, I do need a mover and a seconder. Apologies. Councillor Goswich and Councillor Newstead have moved and seconded this recommendation. So are there any other councillors that are interested in attending? If not, we remove D. And get rid of the and in C. If you could. So is the mover and the seconder happy with the amendment to the recommendation? Any other discussion with regard to the recommendation? If not, all in favour? Aye. Against? Carried. Item number 8 in the business paper, which is that Council's investment report. One, that Council note the report indicating Council's investment position as of the 30th of June 2025. To note the certification of the responsible accounting officer. Do I have a mover? Councillor Goswich and Councillor Hutchings moved and seconded that. Do I have any discussion about the financial position, the cash position of the council at the end of the financial year? A comprehensive report there indicating extra funding, but also indicating extra expenditure towards the end of the financial year to finish up some of the major capital works projects. Any other discussion? If not, all in favour? Aye. Against? Carried. Item number 9, compliance and reporting activities. A recommendation that Council note the report on compliance and reporting activities for the 6-month period to June 2025. Do I have a mover? Councillor Scott has moved that way and Councillor Hutchings has seconded that. Discussion or debate with regard to the compliance and reporting activities report? If not, all in favour? Aye. Against? Carried. Item number 10, lease of industrial land for adjustment purposes. A recommendation that Council approve lease of industrial land paddocks to the following applicants for the period ending the 29th of February 2028 with a 1-year option for the amount shown below, and that's indexed by CPI in brackets. Lot 2, title particulars, Lot 1 DP 842577 to R Hobby for $200 per annum, as I said, indexed for CPI, and Lot 9, title particulars, part Lot 24 DP 1288588 to N Collins for an amount of $500, again indexed to inflation. Do I have a mover? Councillor Goswich and Councillor Scott. Discussion or questions with regard to the lease of industrial land? Councillors. If there is no discussion, I'll move as those in favour. Against? Carried. Item number 11, review of agency information guide. A recommendation that Council adopt the agency information guide and proactive release program for the ensuing 12 months and make it available through Council's website. Mover, please. Councillor Newstead has moved that. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Hutchings has seconded that. Councillors, any discussion with regard to the review of agency information guide? If not, all in favour? Aye. Against? Carried. Item number 12, proposed road name, 238 Forest Reefs Road, Millthorpe Subdivision. There is a recommendation that Council endorse the name Ainsbury Close for the new road following subdivision at 238 Forest Reefs Road, Millthorpe. Do I have a mover? Councillor Scott has moved that. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Goswich. Any discussion with regard to this name? If there is no discussion, all in favour? Aye. Against? Carried. Item number 13, Infrastructure Services Monthly Report. A recommendation that Council 1 note the Infrastructure Services Monthly Report for July 2025. 2, approve the capital expenditure supplementary vote of $25,000 in the 2025-26 operational plan for Heritage Park shade sail replacements, brought forward from 27-28, funded from the section 7.11 developer contributions. A mover, please. Councillor Scott. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Hutchings. Discussion with regard to the report or the shade sails as part of that report. Councillor Newstead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just to the Director through yourself, the shade cloths, are they just worn out, or is it a case of more vandalism to them? What's the go?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, it is just a renewal of failed assets, not due to vandalism.
I'll ask a follow-on question through the General Manager to the Director. We already have allocated 25,000, so this takes it to 50,000. How many shade sails can you actually get for $50,000, I suppose, is the question, or how many do we need replacing?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, it's proposed with this combined funding of the supplementary vote and the existing budget allocations to repair 1 shade sail and replace a further 4.
With regard to the damaged one, I assume it's an easily repairable that will give us a number of years extra life out of it through the General Manager to the Director?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, it's the repair is repairing essentially a rip. It's not really extending its life beyond. Well, it is extending its life, I guess, through just enabling that to be used for another couple of years. Thanks.
So, as a further supplementary question, if I may, through the General Manager to the Director, I assume that it would probably be scheduled for replacement in, I think it's 28-29, where 27-28, sorry, where we have some other money allocated for that. Would that be the current intention at this point in time?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, we'd monitor its condition. We wouldn't be able to tell that until we get closer to that date.
Thank you. Any other questions with regard to the Director's report? Councillor Goswich.
Just on the Rod Street culvert, through you, Mr. Mayor, to the Director, has that started? It says it was going to start on the 14th of July. Has it started, and how's it going with the couple of residents that live down there?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, yes, it's started on track, commencing the 14th of July. We've constructed the temporary bypass track and undertaken the diversion of the water main. We've had no complaints, and the contractor's working well with all residents there that are affected.
Excellent, thank you.
Any other questions from councillors with regard to this report? If not, I have one with regard to the sewer treatment plant, and it's noted here, Council has made a submission to the EPA requesting an increase to daily discharge limits. Could we have an explanation on why we're discharging more sewage?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, so on an annual average, we meet our EPA licence for discharges. However, it's been identified there are some peak flows that result in us exceeding our current licence conditions. We've consulted the EPA. There's no issues raised. It's more of an administrative change to our licence.
And one further question to the Director through the General Manager. With regard to Millthorpe and line marking, is there any update on progress on marking the new work that we have done in the centre of Millthorpe, in Montgomery, Pilcher and Victoria Street, I think it is, and Pym Street, I think was also some line marking.
Through you, Mr Mayor, some line marking was undertaken today due to the presence of vehicles and will require a further establishment of the line marking contractor.
Thank you, Director. Any other questions before I put the resolution to councillors? All in favour? Aye. Against? Carried. Item number 14, minutes of the Blayney Showground Users Group Committee meeting held on the 30th of June 2025. Recommendation that Council 1 receive the minutes of the Blayney Showground Users Group Committee meeting held on the 30th of June 2025 and to adopt the Blayney Showground Users Group Committee Charter. So do I have a mover? So Councillor Scott, Councillor Newstead. Discussion with regard to the meeting. Councillor Goswich.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'd just like to thank the people that attended. It was a very well held meeting, and everyone added to their concerns and the future of the showground. And I think if the committee keeps rolling, the showground's in good hands with the people who turned up, and I like to thank them again.
Any other questions or discussion or comments on this meeting and the minutes? I'd just like, as the Mayor, to reiterate what Councillor Goswich said, that it was a very, I suppose, united group, that they had a common goal to try and enhance the showground. They're looking at a number of options that potentially could happen, but with any options, you've got to fund them. And so that's going to be part of the challenge moving forward, with not much state government funding available or Commonwealth funding available for projects like that. But again, once we've established some of the potential sub-projects, we can potentially look for funding options, or they can look for funding options, and then hopefully progress in smaller sort of projects or packages. And I believe some of the challenges have too been towards getting quotes to actually do some, for example, some electrical work at the showground. So if there's no other discussion, all in favour of the recommendation?
Yeah, thank you, Mr Mayor. I was just going to say there seems to be plenty of happening. I can see that there's 9.5 million approved applications and another 6.5 million to be approved, so there's plenty happening in the Blayney Shire. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The reasons can be varied. Normally it is in relation to requests for additional information. which are required to be able to assess the application or some other aspect of the application. That's the normal reason for it.
Thank you, Director. Any other questions or comments? If not, all in favour? Aye. Against? Carried. To item number 16, which we've done a lot of community consultation, so I expect there'll be a few questions tonight on this one. Curbside waste services. There's a recommendation, quite long. One, that council note the results of the 2025 waste services survey. Number 2, include in the tender process for curbside services the following service options. A, weekly collection of the general waste, red lid bin. B, fortnightly collection of the general waste, red lid bin. C, fortnightly collection of the general waste, red lid bin, with a specific contract clause allowing council to review this after 12 months and, if desired, reinstate weekly collection with 12 months notice to the contractor. Number 3, receive a further report following the tender process to determine the preferred collection model to be implemented with the new waste services contract. And number 4, write to the New South Wales Environment Protection Authority providing the results of Council's survey in relation to views expressed by rural and outlying residents regarding potential exemptions from the FOGO service, so it's the green bin service. Do I have a mover? Councillor Scott has moved that. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Goswich. Councillors, discussion, questions. Councillor Scott.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a quick query regarding those quotes. Is there those quoting, will the contract include the processing of the organic waste? And further to that, is there any intention for council at some point to look at whether we may be able to process the waste ourselves?
Through the General Manager to the Director.
Good. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you for the question, Councillor Scott. The tender process will not only include the curbside collection component, but also the processing. It will be the processing of the recyclables and processing of the organics. So that'll be part of that process.
Other questions from councillors? Councillor Newstead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just got a few comments first. I suppose at the beginning of all this, I was dead set against the green FOGO bins. I must admit, I wasn't a fan. But it was interesting after having gone to the day down at Bernardi's, where people came along and spoke, that people who have come from regions or areas where they have the FOGO bins, they reckon they're the best thing in the world. It's a shame that we couldn't tell the community members how much each one of the options may cost. Like if we go back to a fortnightly red bin collection, what it would cost to have another red bin at the same time, how much it would cost to remain on the weekly red bin collection. Now, having a look at the survey results, they were quite interesting. There was, as expected, a lot of people that were kind of against it. But unfortunately, I think we're in the situation where we don't have a choice as far as the green bins are concerned. So our big concern is which way do we go with the red bin collections, whether, because it's going to be, if we decide to go one way, that's the way it'll be. It won't be some that can have it weekly and some can have it fortnightly. It's either got to be all in. So that's some of the comments I've got about it. And like I said, it's a shame we don't actually know how much yet it would cost because the tender hasn't been done. As just through you, Mr. Mayor, to the Director, as this is a regional tender where there's other councils such as Orange and Bathurst and a few others, once that tender has gone out, can Blayney Shire Council do something different to what those other councils might decide? You know, or again, is it a one in, all in? So yeah, that's my question to you, Mr. Director.
Through the General Manager to the Director.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Each council will be able to determine the suite and program of services for each individual area and won't be bound by the group in that regard.
If I could just
Yes,
another question,
supplementary.
and this might stump you a bit. A gentleman did come to me and say he's not happy about the FOGO bins at all, and I've had a few people say that to me because they, you know, they can easily go to the tip. They're worried about the fact, and I think Councillor Johnson has already said, once the FOGO bins come in, will the green waste and that still be free at the Blayney tip? That's one question. And the other question that this gentleman said, what if we as a council just say to the state government, no, we're not going to have the FOGO bins? What would happen?
Through the General Manager to the Director.
I'm not sure I can answer the second question,
No, I didn't think you would.
other than that would be, I suppose, at face value in breach of what the legislation that the government has set down. In regard to the first question regarding the free green waste at the tip, that'll be the matter for the council to decide. There's no decision on that at the moment. One major, I suppose, advantage of the FOGO service is hoping for a reduction in the green waste that is going to that tip, because that is an issue for us.
No other questions from the councillors. Councillor Scott.
Sorry, through you, Mr. Mayor. There was a part of my original question that we seem to miss, being that is there any intention of council to look at whether a processing facility locally is an option for us so that we can actually process the organic waste collected?
Through the General Manager to the Director, or does the General Manager want to take this?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The simple answer would be no. This is quite a specialised area. We certainly don't believe we have the specialisation to be able to do that, not beyond the realms of possibility, but the intention is to go to tender for the processing of both the green waste and the curbs and the recyclables through specialised contractors.
If there are no other councillor questions, I do have one from the Mayor's Chair through the General Manager to the Director. I'm just wondering, with regard to the recommendation, whether we should actually state that we're also going out for a yellow bin tender on a fortnightly basis and a green bin tender, so a FOGO bin tender, on a weekly basis, or is that covered somewhere else that within Director?
Certainly, Mr. Mayor, look, that's an issue which we believe that was covered by intent, but there would be absolutely no problem of adding that.
Okay. How does the mover and the seconder feel about adding a weekly green bin and as in going out for tender for a weekly green bin and for the continuation of the fortnightly? Because I know some councils are debating about weekly yellow bin, but we don't seem to, our survey doesn't seem to have shown that. So, Councillor Scott, do you have any objection if we add in, I'm not quite sure which...
Through you, Mr. Mayor, my thoughts would be that we may even, if we don't want to specify all the options, put, including the tender process for curbside services, the following, but not limited to options, which then we can look at other options as well.
Okay. If you're happy, Councillor Goswich, with that.
Through Mr. Mayor, the services were covered in the April report to Council. They weren't specified in the resolution in particular. It was more on consultation, but the list of what was going to be sought, including recycling and organics processing was included in that report.
Thank you. And I do have a follow-on question with regard to the FOGO bin and item number 4, so through the General Manager to the Director. Given that we're asking for a potential exemption, how can we go to tender as if, or are we going to go to 2 sub-tenders of going all rural residential are either included or excluded, or because it costs a lot more distance-wise to travel? So we're going to have 2 sub-tenders within the FOGO service. I'll probably just leave it at that. Are we looking at 2 separate sub-tenders because we don't know what the exemptions are going to be at this point in time?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's an interesting question. Obviously, we're hoping that we can have some information before we go to tenders, looking as though the tender will probably be going out late this year, early next year. It would be ideal if we had more of a handle on numbers, but we'll have to look at how it can be structured, because certainly contractors will want to know that sort of information.
Because it really then comes back down to item number 2, that we're looking at different options there of fortnightly and weekly collection. So do we need to add something in the resolution to, as in cover both potential options, or is there enough intent to sort of, with number 4, saying that we're gaining government approval on whether we can have exemptions or not?
I'm thinking there's enough intent there.
Okay.
Through Mr. Mayor, I believe there's enough intent, and there can also be a clarification through the tender process. It is a lengthy process, and there can be clarifications during that process once submissions are in.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions or comments? And I will read the resolution because it has changed again. So that Council note the results of the 2025 Waste Services Survey. Number 2, include in the tender process for curbside services the following service options, including but not limited to a weekly collection of the general waste red lid bin, B, fortnightly collection of the general waste red lid bin, C, fortnightly collection of the general waste red lid bin with a specific contract clause allowing Council to review this after 12 months and, if desired, reinstate weekly collection with 12 months notice to the contractor. Number 3, receive a further report following the tender process to determine the preferred collection model to be implemented with the new waste services contract. Number 4, write to the New South Wales Environment Protection Authority providing the results of Council's survey in relation to views expressed by rural and outlying residents regarding potential exemptions from the FOGO service. So is that resolution clear? I have just thought of one more question through the General Manager to the Director with regard to number 4 before we take a vote. With regard to potential exemptions, are we looking at all rural residential, rural and outlying residents having an exemption, so it's a blanket exemption, or is it potentially an opt-in, opt-out?
I think opt-in, opt-out could be problematic. That'd be my only comment.
Okay, thank you. Councillors, if there's no further discussion, all in favour of the resolution? Aye. Against? Carried. Item number 17, Flyers Creek Community Consultative Committee meeting. A recommendation that Council note the delegate report on the Flyers Creek Wind Farm Community Consultative Committee meeting held on the 16th of June 2025. Do I have a mover? Councillor Johnston has moved that. Councillor Newstead has seconded that recommendation. Discussion with regard to this. Councillor Johnston.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to bring to the attention of an open item that was raised on 24th of January 2023 in regard to a proposed viewing platform. Could I have an update on where this matter is at?
Through the General Manager to probably the Director of Infrastructure, would that be correct, or Planning? Planning. So, Director of Planning.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I do recall that this matter was under some investigation. There was a site which was, I suppose, tentatively looked at. That particular site, there are some complications in that it is also tied up in some land transfers involving some road deviations which happened in the area, which had been going on for some time and then are protracted and I think are still ongoing. So there's not really much that can be reported back in terms of progress at this stage.
Thank you, Director.
Any other questions with regard to the Consultative Committee meeting? And thank you to the Councillor, Councillor Johnston, for providing this report. If not, all in... sorry, yes,
Mr. Mayor,
Councillor Johnston.
there was a further comment made at the committee in regarding to the VPA money and where it goes. I believe that information is publicly available, and so do we need to provide any extra feedback to the committee on that?
I'll just ask the General Manager whether it's possible to actually provide a report back, or should we be providing a report back?
Happy for me to go. Through you, Mr. Mayor. There is a table which is included on page 99 of the business paper, and I know it's always also in the CCC minutes, which shows the contribution that has been paid by Iberdrola. Council on its website has an open list in financial assistance that outlines the major or project, the $25,000 project, which directly comes from Iberdrola. The other $20,000 goes into a pool of approximately, I think it's $140,000 in total, 145. So it's a part of that, but those projects are listed on the Financial Assistance Program website. Council also reports in general terms in its annual report each year where developer contributions and planning agreement monies are expended. So all of that information is publicly available. Iberdrola are fully aware of that, as are that committee. So I don't believe any further information is required.
Thank you, Mr. General Manager.
And I will just add to that under council resolution, we have allocated for the last 2 financial years, and I think this is the 3rd financial year, $10,000 from the Flyers Creek voluntary planning agreement towards roadside weed control in that Cadia Flyers Creek area as well. I think this is the last financial year, General Manager. Yeah, so that's an extra allocation because there was some funding that hasn't been utilised early on, because I think there's maybe near $50,000 for the infrastructure side or the community benefit side, but we've only allocated, is it 40,000 or 45, whatever the 45 it might be. So it might be 55. Yeah, so that's where the extra, as in money, has gone to landholders in that Flyers Creek area that are impacted by the wind facilities, have actually gained an extra roadside weed control on an annual basis, about 100 kilometres of roadside around that Flyers Creek area as well. Any other discussion with regard to this delegate's report? If not, all in favour? Aye. Against? Carried. Item number 18, Association of Mining and Energy Related Councils, a recommendation that Council note the delegate report on the Association of Mining and Energy Related Councils meeting held on the 4th of June 2025 to support the need for a new grant funding program for mining impacted communities in New South Wales. I'm just going to take a drink. Number 3, note it will receive a further report regarding the Mining and Energy Related Councils campaign seeking to secure the return of a proportion of mining royalties to the communities that host and or are affected by mining operations. Do I have a mover? Councillor Newstead. Seconder, Councillor Goswich. Councillors, discussion or debate? Councillor Newstead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a comment. I think it should be made aware to the community how important this grant funding was, and how well, I believe, tight the New South Wales government is when they were taking in $22 billion a year. $3.2 billion a year in royalties and giving only 75 million back to the 26 mining affected communities. You wouldn't have thought that that would be something they would stop. It used to work at about $4 million for Blayney Shire Council, which was something that we don't get now, and it's a big drain on our resources. So it's pretty disappointing, and I hope that something can be done and another funding stream can come online, because it's pretty important to small councils like Blayney that are affected by a big mine such as Cadia. So yeah, hopefully something can be done. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Newstead. Any other comments from councillors? If not, we have two delegates on the mining and energy related councils, being the Mayor and the General Manager, and both of us attended the last one by our teams, and it was very much noted by Roy Butler, who's the independent member, Western New South Wales, so Barwon is his electorate, that the mining and energy related councils needed to provide something new to the government, a new funding source. So Blayney Council has been proactive in looking at options, and we've had numerous discussions, etc., with ministers. I can recall asking the Treasurer about this earlier this year in a joint organisation meeting, but we haven't had at this stage any positive responses. But Mr. Butler did indicate that if we do have pathway moving forward on some new option or alternative, that he'd be willing to try and open up the doors of the Premier and Treasurer, etc. So there is support, and Mr. Butler does have COBAR, for example, in his electorate, and they were very reliant on resources for regions funding. But the state government has said it will not reopen the previous resources for regions, so it has to be a new funding mechanism. How that works, we don't know at this stage, but Blayney Council is trying to be proactive, as well as the mining and energy related councils, with regard to this issue. And so, yeah, we're doing our best, and I know the General Manager has spent a lot of time on this, as well as myself as the Mayor, on this particular issue, because it does, as Councillor Newstead highlighted, does have a very big impact. $4 million worth of roadworks, and most of it's gone into roadworks in our Shire in the last couple of years, will see us greatly reduce our road working capacity moving forward. Which is sad, because we're really starting to get some of our roads back up to first-rate condition, and it'd be great if that funding was there to continue doing the roadworks and fixing some of our other roads, because some of our dirt roads and some of our bitumen roads still need a lot more work to bring them up to a standard that the community pretty well expects these days. That's one of the challenges. Is expectations have risen from 20 years ago and 10 years ago, but this was a funding source that we have been able to use, and a number of our roads, including Hobbies Yards Road and Forest Reefs Road, just two to name, that have received a lot of funding to actually upgrade those roads and make it safer for people to traffic those roads. Councillors, any other discussion? If not, all in favour? Aye. Against? Carried. The final item on tonight's council meeting, item number 19, Country Mayor Association's Roads and Transport Meetings, 12th of June 2025. A recommendation the council receive and note the delegates' report for the Country Mayors Association Road and Transport meeting held on the 12th of June 2025. Do I have a mover? Councillor Scott has moved that. Councillor Hutchings has seconded that. Any discussion? And again, even at this Congress, again, speed is being highlighted, and the need to look at speed and speed limits across the whole of the state concerns again. But it was also a very, very good meeting, because I was able to talk to, now it's Holly Davis, I think is the acting regional director, or is she now the regional director? I don't know if she's graded as in, but talk to her face to face, which was my first opportunity to have a long discussion with her, and she covers Western New South Wales for Transport for New South Wales. So, and she was able to actually get a few positive outcomes for our LGA, as you may have noted, with regard to Church Street, Orange Road, Millthorpe Road, Adelaide Street, we have had a fair bit of work done, and that's been through a lot of lobbying by General Manager, the Director and myself to try and get some outcomes, positive outcomes, and we have seen those, but it's been a long, hard road, but our community hopefully has benefited from that. And so she was at this meeting, and again, we had further discussions with regard to moving forward, but the Transport for New South Wales roads are a lot better than they have been in recent years. So I suppose thank you through to Holly and the staff for actually getting those roads fixed up, because some of them were, as in, suffering from particularly the wet years that we did have. Councillors, any further discussion, questions on this last item for this evening? If not, all in favour? Aye. Against? Carried. Councillors, at 1 minute past 7, I close the council meeting tonight, and thank you for your attendance.